All right, so in this chapter we are talking about JavaScript objects, and we will be looking at quickly some built-in objects, and then we'll look at how we can create our own custom objects. So let's just dive right in. I'm starting with Visual Studio Code, and I have a file open that I started called index.js, and I'm just going to start right in. So the first thing I want to address is the fact that JavaScript has its own built-in objects. And we've been playing with some of those. For example, math is an object that we've been playing with. And this should probably look familiar from the Great Race. And I'm just going to put it in there and copy and paste. I don't have to type all that in. But math is an object. It's a built-in object. And if you're familiar with object-oriented programming from other languages, you'll know that sometimes when you create an object, you have to create a new instance. Sometimes if it's a static class, you don't have to create a new instance. You can just use it. For example, math, we have direct access to. We don't have to create a new instance of it. We can just put it into our code and run it. So let's just remember that we can type in node and the name of the file to run this JavaScript code directly from our terminal without having to open a browser. So math is a built-in JavaScript object. If you look in W3 schools, there is a great listing for the date object. And in fact, date, D-A-T-E, is a JavaScript object. However, it's an object that we have to create a new instance of. So if I want to utilize date for the date, for example, I will have to create a new instance of date. And so if we then print out console.log, let's see what happens when we print out the date. We got to spell it right and case. Okay, and so if I do that now, I can just use my arrow up key to do node and node index. And then here you can see that there is quite a long dated format there for me to utilize. I guess I'll go into my browser here and I'll pull up W3 schools, and I'll bring it so you can see it. And I'm going to do a search on JavaScript date object. JavaScript date reference is where I'm headed. And on the left-hand side here, if you scroll down, let's see, this isn't quite where I thought I was going to go. So I'm going to go to JavaScript. And I'm going to go down here to where it says dates. So I'm at the JavaScript tutorial, and here's JavaScript dates. And so this gives you a little bit more information about utilizing the JavaScript date object. But if I go down to date methods, this is going to get where it gets a little bit more important. And here I can see that I can utilize the method of the object to get specific information, such as the date. I can get the day, recognize that 0 is Sunday, then 6 is Saturday. Get the full year, get hours, get milliseconds. So here you can see get month is starting at 0, so that's January. So if I wanted to access information about the date, then again, for time saving, I'm just going to copy this statement in that I already have. And we'll just console log quite a number of those methods. We'll combine a couple of those methods to get the day, the month, and the full year of the date object that I created in line 3. So if I save that and run it, I get 1/9/2017. Not real pretty, but we're getting introduced to the date object. So that's all well and good, and we'll look at utilizing dates a little bit more specifically at another time. But these are things that we should already be comfortable with, most likely, using objects that are already, I guess we can say objects that are already available to us, that we can access their properties or their methods. But now let's create some of our own. So let's declare some objects. Okay, and I can do it like this, var person equals new object. That works, not a problem there. Or I can do var inventory. Just creating a little different one. And then similar to what we did with arrays, remember that we're a lot more loosely typed when we talk about JavaScript than maybe something you might have had experience in the past with C# or Java, for example. So those are some ways that we can do it, but we can also do what's called an object literal. In other words, I'm going to create a dog and open and closing braces like we did above. Except inside of it now I'm going to create some name value pairs that will define some properties of the dog. For example, the dog might have a name, and then I'm going to use a comma, and the dog could have an age and 15. So the last name key value pair that I'm putting in this object literal does not have a comma. So I will differentiate. If I had another one in here, I could put color, I don't know, Odie was yellow. So that would be followed by a comma. I guess I have to use a semicolon here and not a colon. There we go. So any number of properties that you want, name, key value pairs, and then commas after each one except the last one. So we could do this. Now we're creating a dog object. And if I wanted to print it out, then I could do something like console log dog. And maybe I just want his name. So we could do that. And I go ahead and print that out. So now we're getting the dog's name, Odie, here. All right, let me, what else am I printing out here? Let's just comment this out so we don't have extraneous things being printed out on our terminal here. I'm going to type CLR to clear the screen, or I guess it's CLS to clear the screen. There we go. So things aren't looking quite so confusing. Okay, so now we're creating a dog object. Sounds good so far. You can also, if you wanted to, type in console. Another way you could get at that property is with the brackets. Dog name. So that would do the same thing. Let's put something different in this time. Let's put color. So that's another way that you could do get access to that same property. And so by Node.js, there we go. So I get both of those values. So that's one way to do it as well. And so that kind of lends itself to the fact that we could loop through the properties and the values in a for loop. So let's give that a try. For var. Now we're going to use a different syntax this time. Instead of doing where we do for var for I equals 0, I less than length, etc., etc. Now we're going to use the syntax that just says for property in and then our object, which is dog. So this is another way to loop through each of the values. I'm missing a parenthesis here. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to be looping through all of the different key value pairs in our object. And so if I type that out, console.log, and let's try properties and see what we get. And I'm going to comment these out again for clarity. So I only have one thing printing out at a time. Okay, so let's give that a try and see what we get. So now we're getting the keys, aren't we? So wouldn't it be nice if we could get the values? So let's do this. Let's concatenate, plus I'll put a space, plus, and then I can put prop. Remember that that's getting the key. So we said above here that I could get the value by using the brackets. And then I can put in here, oh, this should be dog. Did that wrong. Dog. And then in here I can put prop. So that'll get the values. So there's my object, which is what we did here. And then I can get at each of the values by the key name, which is what I'm getting with prop. So let's see if that works. There we go. All right. Well, that's well and good. Let me show you another way that we can do this. I'm going to take that console log. I'm going to print out the same thing. It's just another way to do it. So if you like this way, use this way. If you don't, use the way we just did above. So instead of concatenating these strings with these plus signs, I'm going to do sort of a template, I think they call it. literal template, I think it's what it's called. But in essence, it's a string format. So I can put the backtick. Now that backtick is usually underneath the escape key to the left of the 1. So it's that let me see if I can highlight. It's that kind of like a sideways apostrophe. So if I use the backtick, and then I can get at those properties by using, let's see, what did we do? Name. I can do $ and open and closing braces, and then in here put in a variable. And now just write out my string as if like I would like a space here. So instead of having to put plus and then 2 strings like we did above here, because I'm putting it in this backtick, I can just say space. Maybe I'll just put in a word here just for clarity. And then we'll put another, and then we'll put dog, prop, and then close that all up. And that should do the same thing as what we did above, but now it's just a little different way to do it. I don't have to concatenate and keep track of my variables versus my string literals. I can just all make it one literal, and then with this syntax $ open and closing braces, plop in variables where I want appropriate in that sentence. So go ahead and run that, and it does the same thing, which is what my goal was. So we're looping through each key value pair, and we're printing out the key and then the value. So that's well and good. All right, so what I'm going to do next is introduce you to, and also give you a little reminder, I'm going to introduce you to something called Lodash. So let me bring this over. And let's see, I'm going to do a search for Lodash to see what it is that you're jumping me into next. So Lodash is a package that we can install in NPM that is going to give us the ability to do a lot more like iterations and so forth a lot easier. So I would encourage you to look at the documentation for Lodash. And just to give us an example, I'm going to be utilizing, you can scroll down here, and the more you start to get comfortable with this documentation and how to look it up and work through it, the better off you're going to, programmer you're going to be. We're going to be using this for each, and here is the documentation for it, and here's an example of it. So what we're looking at here, notice the Lodash, so hence the name Lodash. And so if we utilize this syntax that they are demonstrating for us, what they're demonstrating here is that if we use Lodash and we give it a sequence, in this case they gave it an array, we could give it an object. So if we give them a collection, whatever you want to call it, what's happening is this is a callback function, and we've looked at callback functions. And the idea here is that this loop is going to loop through each element in the array, and it's going to, the first loop, it's going to take this value and put it into our anonymous functions parameter. So we loop through. This is a callback, so that's being placed into our parameter as an argument, and then we're going to be printing out 1 or 2 in this case. So let's go ahead and see how we can utilize that with the code that we just did here with dog. So I'm going to basically be doing this same for loop, except we're going to do it with Lodash. And so I'm going to comment that out. No, I'm not. How about if we do it the right way? Okay. So there we go. Okay. So if we're going to be using Lodash, let's see, that requires us to install a package, doesn't it? So let me clear the screen so I have a clean slate here. And remember, well, let me bring that Lodash documentation back just so we can see it. And boy, it got shrunk up for some reason. If I go back to the very first page, I'm having some challenges there there we go. So installation, so this shows you how you could install it in a browser. Here's how we'll use it in NPM. So here is our install. The -G just is a way to install it as a global install. If you leave it off, it's just a local install to our directory, so I'll probably leave it off. And then save Lodash. This is sort of, save is not really used anymore. In the old days, you have to put save in order to write the dependencies to the package JSON file. But now with the current version we're working on in NPM, it does it automatically for us. So let's go ahead. Notice they used I instead of install. You could do it either way. So let's install our Lodash package so we can utilize it here in our code to make our work a little bit easier. So we use npm to install a package, remember. I'll just type out install just for clarity and put in Lodash. And we should see that it starts to install. There it goes. And then as it installs, we should see the folder pop up there. Got a meowing kitten in the background, so let's shut the door on the meowing kitten. Okay, so now we have access to the Lodash package, and it's all been installed for us. I think we saw in another video how we can use get ignore. We don't have to upload this to our GitHub, but that's a different video. All right, so now that we have Lodash package installed, remember we have to require it. So just like we did with Chalk, I'm just going to copy and paste in just for brevity. So we will copy and paste that in. So now we have access to that package, the Lodash package, and if you look at the documentation, that's where that comes right out of. In fact, let me make that clear so it's not like I'm making things up here. So in order to use it, you can see that in Node.js, we use this var underscore equals require. So this is how we bring that package in. It's right out of my documentation. If you know that you're only going to be using part of the package, you have the ability in this particular one to install just pieces of it to make your install a little bit lighter, but not really sure what I'm going to be doing, so I'm going to take the full build. All right, so let's put that back aside. Okay, so now that I have Lodash installed and I've required it, so I'm able to now utilize it, let us utilize the code that we just saw for the for each. So it was underscore for each. You can see that since all of those dependency files are installed, that we have the nice little IntelliSense for each dog. So loop through all the key value pairs in dog. And what we're going to do then is create an anonymous function. And we're going to put in the value. And let's see, there's our function. And then console.log value. Okay, so that's a handful, and then we need to end off with our semicolon. So let's see if this works before I explain it and make sure we understand where we're going with that. So don't want to install it again, don't want to clear it. There we go. And looks like I have an error, so let's fix our error. Oh, I spelled value wrong. There we go. All right, so I spelled my parameter wrong, and now that the parameters spelled correctly, we should be good to go. So we are looping through each dog, and we're sending the value to our anonymous function, and then that's in fact what we're getting. And how do I know that value is what's being sent and not the key? Because if you look at the documentation, that's what it says it's being sent over by our Lodash method. Okay, something else that you're going to see when we're looking at JavaScript is what we call the fat arrow, I think is what they call it. And what they'll do is, those JavaScript people, they will take the parameter. So I'm going to erase everything else that makes up our anonymous function. We're still utilizing an anonymous function, but now instead of having the word function and all of those parentheses and so forth, we put in the fat arrow, which is doing the same thing. So it's just a shortcut way of saying anonymous function that has value as a parameter. So if you wanted to do more than one parameter, you could do that with commas, and then maybe you could have a second parameter, whatever you wanted to do. Okay, so I'm not going to do that in this case, but that's how you would do it. I guess you can't put a space in this variable name, can you? How long have you been programming? Oh, I don't know, 10 minutes. Okay, why won't that go away? There we go. All right, so if you needed to receive more than more than one parameter, or you could do it with the parentheses. But since I'm just receiving one, I'm going to get rid of the parentheses and the second parameter and just set it up this way. Okay, so this is then a shortcut for a anonymous function that is receiving a parameter of value that we are then printing out. So in essence, not in essence, it will do the same thing that we've seen here, just another way to go about it. Okay, fantastic. What next do you have in store for us? Well, let's see. I'm going to comment all of this out just for just to clean things up a little bit. So now let us, I'm going to copy this dog stuff back down just so we can have it back on our screen here. And now what we can do is, let's say that, no, I think I'll do it a little different way. I'm going to create a brand new object just because it goes with what I've already got set up on my notes that I have hidden off screen to make it look like I'm doing this all spontaneously, but I'm not. All right, so let's create an owner. And just to give you some practice, let me kind of tell you what I'm doing. So create an object called owner, and that has a name and an age. Okay, so go ahead and give that a try. You might put this on hold or on pause and practice it on your own just to make sure you get the concept of owner. In the meantime, I will continue as if you have paused and are anxiously awaiting to check your results. So I'm going to do a name, and Odie's name, the owner's name was John, if you remember. If you've ever heard of Garfield, that's what I'm working on here. And age is John. I'll give him 32. All right, so this looks familiar. We've done this already. And then if I were to console log owner.name, that should print out John. So let's clear out our workspace here and then type in node index, and we get John. So that's good. All right. Well, it turns out that we can also put an object inside of an object. So I'm going to put a comma, and let's see. John owns he owns a cat, doesn't he? And let's see, we'll put that. And the cat, he has a name, and his name is Garfield. And he has a color, OR, and Garfield is orange. Okay. So you have to be very careful with when you're creating an object, the last property in the object does not have a comma, but all the prior properties do have a comma. So I'm not going to put a comma after orange, nor am I going to put a comma after cat, but I am going to put a comma after age and John. So assuming this is all right, let's print out Garfield, which would be console.log. And then we just follow with the dot notation the path to get there. So we have owner, and then we have cat, and then we have name. So that should print out Garfield. So let's see. John and Garfield. Very cool. All right. Well, turns out that John also has a dog, doesn't he? Well, we got to make sure we include the dog. So I'm going to put a comma and dog, put a dog object, and the dog has a name, and his name is Odie, and he has a color, and his color is yellow. Okay, so the comma after cat, and then no comma after the dog object. So hopefully this is looking familiar. You have to really think about what you're typing in to make sure you put the commas and semicolons and closing braces and opening brackets and everything else in the right place. Owner dot, this time we're going to go dog dot name, and let's see if that works. Oops, there it is. And sure enough, we've got all of them printing out. Oh, that's fantastic news. All right, so turns out that you can also, remember that JavaScript is a very loose language. So here, even though we've defined all of our properties within our object literal, we can just add on a property as we go if we want. In other words, maybe, oh shoot, I forgot John's last name. So if I wanted to, I can just add owner dot, I'm just going to create a last name for John. Last name equals, do you know what his last name was? I'll pretend like I knew I had to look it up too. His last name was Arbuckle. So now I can console log owner dot last name, and that, so I can just kind of append things on the fly. And we'll make sure that works, and there's Mr. Arbuckle. So we're good, looking good there. All right, so very interesting. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add, every object, of course, has a method. So objects not only have things that a state, a property, but there's things that they can do. So for example, a dog can, let's see, where am I going to add this? Let's kind of start from scratch again. You know what I'm going to do just to keep things, I'm going to comment all of this out. Oops, Control V, probably, nope. Let's just do it by hand, there we go. I'm going to bring that dog back down. So I'm going to bring my object dog back down. I'm going to work with the dog again. Okay, fantastic. All right, so we looked at dog and we said the dog object has a name and a color and an age. And dogs make noise, so let's put a comma and we're going to add a method. So we have properties and now let's add a method. So I'm going to use make noise and we're going to create an anonymous function. And we will do something like console.log let's see, woof. There we go. And so now, if I want to make my dog object woof, dog make noise, woof. All right, so that should work. Let's clear out our screen and let's run it. So index, node index, and sure enough, woof. Fantastic. Okay, well, let's see. Let's practice that. Let's practice. Let's see. We'll give it a noise, and then let's do this. Just kind of reiterating some of the things that we've already done. So we can use the backtick, remember, and use the $sign and the braces, open and closing braces, and then put in that variable, and then woof. So depending on what we send our method, we will get a different noise. So maybe dog barks. Let's see, what else can a dog do? Dogs can grr. Let's see what happens there. I don't think Odie ever really grrred, but sure, there he is. Okay, so now he's grrring. Remember also that, and again, this is just to reiterate, remember when we had an anonymous function, we could replace all of this extra syntax with a fat arrow. So I'm going to do that just for practice. Okay, doing the same thing. Nothing's changed. So there's our parameter. And grr is going to get sent into that parameter. So sure enough, that works. All right. So that's one way we can do this. And as is JavaScript's way, there is another way that we can create a method. And that is, I can, let's see, run. I'm going to create a run. And let's see, console.log, I am very fast. So this is another way to create a method. And so if we make our dog run, he's going to run very fast. Sure enough. Okay. Well, that's all very exciting. And now what we're going to do is, again, I'm going to bring down my comments. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create constructors. And so, like maybe some of your stronger type languages like C# and Java, you can create objects from a class. And so we call it object-oriented programming. Well, we don't really have classes per se in JavaScript, which is why JavaScript is called an object-based language and not an object-oriented programming language. But we do have, it's similar. It smells and sounds very similar to creating a class, but they're not officially classes. So we're going to create a constructor. And what a constructor is, if you've not had a more structured programming language, and a constructor is simply when we create a new object, when we create a new dog or a new cat or a new person, a constructor is a method or a function that runs by default automatically when we create that new object. And so we call this creating a constructor in JavaScript. So I'm going to create a constructor for animals so that I can create animal objects. And let me just kind of put the syntax for now. So what we'll do is we'll create a function, and then this might have some statements in it. And so then when we want to create new objects from our constructor, what we can do is we can say var dog equals new animals. And so what would happen then is any properties that we set up in animals, the dog will automatically receive, and any other animals that we create from this constructor. So let's put some statements in and see how this works. All right, so let's see, what does animals have? So when we create an animal would probably have a name and a species, let's say. In other words, is this animal a dog or a cat or a llama or whatever? And so when we create our new dog, we have to pass it in the appropriate arguments. So let's pass in, let's see. Oh, I know. Let's pass in, oh shucks, what is his name? I'm thinking of Lilo and Stitch. There it goes. So Stitch, and he is, oh, I don't remember what his species was. He was an experiment something. Don't remember the number. Experiment something. I'll just say 100, although I don't remember what it was. I can't believe I don't remember what experiment number it was, but that's okay. So he was a species of something, and he had a name of Stitch. And so when we create this new, I can call him a dog. Maybe he's a thing. When we create a new thing, and he's Stitch, we're creating it from our animals, and we're giving it a name and a species. And so at the time that we create our constructor, we want to assign, let's see, so we can give it a title. We'll just call it title equals name. And then also species. Oh, let's see, not species. Type, I guess. Type equals species. And so what we're doing here is simply saying this is the property of animals. These are the properties, and these are the things that will vary. These are our variables. The only thing that we have to add to this to make this complete is title by itself has no meaning. We're using this to create an object. So we have to put the word this in front of our properties. And the idea here is this is specific to the object that is being created here. So this is specific to an object that is being created from our constructor. And so that's how we keep each animal that we create individual, because this refers to, in other words, let's see if I can make this a little bit more clear. So now if I type out console.log thing, for example, thing is now a specific object that is calling title. And so things title, so I can use apostrophe S maybe, things title, and that's what this is doing. This is making things its ownership. So thing owns this particular set of properties, and so therefore we have to utilize the word this to refer to my object, my or me, my title, for example. in this case, this thing's title, which is specific right here with this. So if we print this out, let's see if that works. And sure enough, it prints Stitch. So if I didn't give it this, let's just say I did it this way and try to do the same thing, I'm bound and determined to get an error. Sure enough, it's undefined because the interpreter doesn't know which title you're referring to. Well, I'm referring specifically to this object that is calling me at this time. So we have to have this in place. Okay. So now we can also, of course, make a method. So let's make a, well, let's see, before we do that, let's just verify that we're working correctly. Let's make some other kind of thing. Let's make a dinosaur, and we'll create it from animals. And we will create Dino. If you're familiar with Fred Flintstone. Boy, and I've really made this hard on myself. I have no idea. I guess he's a brontosaurus. And I have no idea how to spell that. Close enough. If I say the word, then you'll pretend like you know what I was trying to say there. Okay, I'm going to move along. So let's do console.log, and I guess that's dinosaur dot species, so we can see how horribly I spelled that word. And so now we should see specific brontosaurus. So let's see if that works. Oh, it's undefined. Why did I undefine it? Maybe I spelled something wrong here. Let's see. Dinosaur dot, oh, because I used the wrong. I used the parameter instead of the property. So let's change that. There we go. And now if we run that, there it is. Yay, this is so much fun. Get it? This is, never mind. All right, so now let us also take the fact that our animals might be different. So let's create some methods. So this dot noisemaker equals, remember an anonymous function receives a parameter, so I'm just going to put that parameter, which I'm going to call as sound, the fat arrow, and console.log. Let's see. We'll just put in the, I guess for now we'll just put in the sound. Okay. And so now when we create our animals, we can also make it add some sound. So let's do console.log thing dot noisemaker. I have no idea what noise Stitch makes. Oh, I guess he always says Ohana, doesn't he? So we'll do that. Ohana. There we go. And let's see if Stitch says Ohana. Undefined. So let's see what I did wrong. Noisemaker. Let's see. Thing dot noisemaker. I sent it sound. Console log sound. Let's see. What did I do? Oh, right. Okay. So here's what I did incorrectly. I did a console.log and then I called the method. That was okay. But in my method, if I look at my method is console logging sound, which I am then console logging. So that's where the undefined comes from. So all I really needed to do was let the method do its thing. And there we go. So now I fixed that error. Okay. Oh, that looks better. Okay. And then I think you get the idea there. So now we're creating methods in our constructors. And here is another one. Here's the last method I'm going to create in this constructor. I'm going to create a method in a different way. So let's see. I'm going to put, I guess I need a semicolon here. And now I'm going to put this dot run equals running. Oh goodness, what are you up to now? Well, let's see. I am going to create a function called running. Okay, so notice that this is referring to the name of my function. Running is referring to the name of my function name, but it doesn't have parentheses, because if I had parentheses there, this would be invoking this function at that time. But I'm not invoking the function right now. What I'm doing is assigning this whole function to a variable name. So I'm assigning this, whatever's in this function, to a single variable name. And let's see, what shall we put in running? Let's put console.log. Let's just say something simple like, well, let's see, maybe we can do number of paws. So I run on num pause. Okay. And so now we have in our constructor then a variable that's holding a reference to a function that runs. So let's see, I can do thing dot, and I need to call that method name or function name, which is run. And I need to send it an argument. So Stitch runs on 2 legs mostly. And so now that should print out console log I run on 2. I guess I needed to put how many paws plus paws. That makes sense. That's where I was headed with that. All right, let's see if that works. I run on 2 paws. So there you go. So that's a different way to do a function, but again, probably kind of a new concept. So this whole concept of sending a function name, we're simply sending a function name to a variable, and then we can run that function from that variable, in this case, as part of our constructor. So lots of different concepts going on here. I appreciate you might want to play this video back several times. This is also in chapter 7 of the book, and then in the extra reading that I provided for you as part of the assignment. So that'll reiterate some of the points that we've done here on this video.